2, 3, 4.
Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Quest. We're doing question and answers today with the community. This is my absolute favorite episode to do because this community has come to be so important and so encouraging and totally unlike anything else I've ever seen on YouTube before. It's such an honor to be a part of this group. So we're gonna be frequently taking your guys' questions, and today we've got King Zach. How do I get into a position like you? I want to teach and speak. I have no school background, but did earn a GED. I've also traveled 36 states from the time I was 5 until I was 18 years old. I'm 25 now. I've learned a lot from my experiences and travels. I've read about 10 to 15 books over the last 2 years that have helped me, but I don't know who to talk to or how to start off to do the things you do. So I get asked questions of that variation quite frequently, a lot of times from the employees here at Quest. And I always tell people, be careful asking that question, because the very question that you're asking, it's the litmus test, right? Most people aren't prepared to do what those who achieve success were willing to do. And the biggest differentiator between people who achieve success and people who don't is the sheer volume of work that they throw at the problem. So to give you an idea, to get where I am was a grueling intellectual and emotional slog where I had to face all of my inadequacies, my insecurities, the things that I wasn't good at. I had to stare them all in the face and say, okay, to achieve what I want to achieve, I'm not yet the person that I need to be. So if you really want to be in my shoes, that's step number one. You've got to admit to yourself that you're not yet who you need to be. You talk about reading books. It's incredibly powerful, man, and I really do applaud you. That is such a brilliant first step, and you're already well on your way to getting the information that you're going to need to do what I'm doing. But the truth is, the sheer volume of books that you've read, it's just not anywhere near what you need to be at. So the answer is almost always more, right? What do you need to do? You need to do more. So read, you need to read voraciously, you need to read every day. If it takes you more than a week to read a book, you're already in trouble. That's a pretty steep pace. If you slid off that a little bit and sort of hit the absolute backstop of, let's call it 40 books a year, and I'm talking nonfiction. I know some people believe that fiction can be very powerful, and I think that narrative can be powerful, but I'm specifically talking books that from their title forward are designed to give you a very specific skill. You've picked up that book because you recognize to accomplish your goals, there is a skill that you're currently lacking, and that book promises to deliver on that skill. So you're going to need to start reading a lot more. And then most importantly, everything else pales in comparison to this. Act today. So if you really want to be teaching and speaking, you need to find a way by the end of today to be teaching and speaking. And if that's grabbing your family members and getting them to sit down and listen to you for 5 minutes at the beginning of dinner, then so be it. Something that you read in your book that you want to explain to them. Or better yet, get them to tell you things. Show up with a list of questions and figure out what can you learn from each person at the table. Because now you're going to be engaging with them, learning and asking better questions, practicing being a learner, which is one of the most important things you could practice. They really may have useful information, by the way, that you can immediately put into your own life. And then because they're your family, they'll give you very candid feedback. If you don't have a lot of close family, go for friends. So it's just about going, being diligent, hyperactive, digging in every day with intention, pushing as hard as you can, and I hate to say it, but working way more hours than anyone else. I wake up absurdly early, and from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm trying to do something that's giving me a skill or is executing on a skill that I have in service of my goals. So, more. Next up, we have a question from YouTube from Michael.
Do you have any books or resources that you would recommend to improve interviewing skills? Or that would give me more insight on how the employer approaches the hiring process?
So that's very easy. And oddly enough, I actually haven't read any books on the hiring process or on getting hired. But as somebody who has spent an inordinate amount of time interviewing people, I've interviewed over 1,500 people at this point. You run the math on that and you realize it is a lot of people per day. And you begin to realize the kinds of things you're looking for that become very codified in your own mind. And the truth is, if you really want a job, you need to go into that interview interview and blow them away. You need to show them that you know a lot about their business. You're looking for the plan. So if somebody comes into an interview, I don't care about their resume. The resume tells me where they've been. It does not tell me where they're going. The truth is, if you come in and dazzle me, if you come in and you show that you understand my business as good or maybe better than I understand my business, that you've got specific ideas on how, if you got that job, you would be able to move us forward. And I would walk in with a 90-day plan, and I would lay out my 90-day plan, and I would say, here is exactly what I'm going to do. Here's exactly the impact that's going to happen on the company, and really try to blow them away. Because if you dazzle them, if you leave them going, whoa, they did all that just for the interview? If they'll do that for the interview, what will they do to really shine in the job? And that's exactly the question that you want any potential employer to be asking about you. Two more things. One, you should be interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing you. The last thing you want to do is find yourself in a job that you hate just because you wanted to win the job, right? Don't do that. You want to go in assessing the opportunity. Figure out who those people are. Ask them questions to actually find out things that you care about, things that are important to you, to make sure that you're going to be working at a company that you really believe in. You spend like 50% of your waking hours at your job. To just show up and try and get the gig because it's got the right title and the right pay, to me, is a suicide mission. So make sure that you're interviewing them. And then the other thing is that if you identify a job that you really want, but you think either you're underqualified for the position or it's a step up and you don't think that they'll go for it, or you interviewed and they flat passed on you. One thing that you can do, especially if you're young, is you want to go to that person and donate your time and say, look, I love your company. I love what you stand for. And you're going to demonstrate that you really understand their company. You understand them as a person. You've done your research. You know things that aren't just easy to know. You've really dug into what's going on. And you're going to demonstrate that knowledge and say, I want to work not at some company, I want to work at your company, not in any industry, in your industry. And I'm willing to prove that by donating my time to you and working as an intern for 90 days, completely unpaid. All I ask in return is knowledge. If you give me that, I will come in, I will work harder and smarter than anyone else on your payroll. If at the end of the 90 days you agree that I've worked harder and smarter than anyone else and I've proven myself to be valuable and you would rather pay me than lose me, then I will stay on in a paid position. If at the end of that time you don't agree that I'm worth what the role is offering, then we shake hands and part ways and no hard feelings. But at least in that time, you got some highly motivated labor and I got knowledge. And getting that knowledge is really the key. And if you get in, man, that is your chance to shine. Getting in the door and then proving through your actions that you're worth that role, that's everything. And to me, I would much rather have the chance to show myself, because if you're just trying to essentially trick someone into giving you the job and you've made your resume look as good as possible, but you're going to go in and underperform what they're expecting, that's never going to be a great relationship. There's only one path to success, and that's to set the bar ridiculously high and then come in and surpass all expectations. So you've got to have the willingness to go in and become the person you need to become to blow people away. Next up, we have a question from Tony.
A few days ago, I had a conversation with a friend which reminded me of a challenge that I participated in about a year ago called the Perfect Day Challenge. I was wondering if you've ever participated in any challenge similar to that, and what sorts of things are you doing to fulfill achieving your perfect day? Thanks.
To give you an honest answer about a perfect day is really complicated. There's two types of happiness. And I think when most people think about what their perfect day is, they're thinking momentary happiness, right? They're going to tell you, I want to be on a beach with the woman that I love, drinking cocktails and eating chocolate ice cream, right? It's going to look something like that. And to be honest, that sounds pretty rad to me too. But it isn't what I would consider my perfect day. If I knew that it was going to be my last day, I would want it to be a day of fulfillment. And this is something, if you guys know Tony Robbins, we did an episode with Tony Robbins, which I highly encourage you guys to watch. But Tony talks about how fulfillment is really the thing that people want when they say that they want to be happy. And the difference between momentary happiness, a bowl of ice cream, right? A bowl of ice cream will put you in a good mood. It's legitimate happiness, but it's very fleeting and it goes away. What I call framework framework happiness or fulfillment is very different, and it's born around being something or becoming something that you're proud of, becoming something that is capable of accomplishing the goals that you want to accomplish, and in having the courage and the discipline to pursue that, to become that, to put in the work to change your life, to deliver value. And that's really important. To deliver value to other people, that's a perfect day. So for me, a perfect day would definitely include seeing somebody have that moment of awakening, which to me is very powerful. And what I mean by that is I feel like, and this certainly was true of myself, I feel like most people go through lives feeling like their life could be more, that they could do something better, and they don't know how to do it. And that moment when you see them awaken to realizing they have to take extreme ownership of everything in their life, and they have to take responsibility for every action in their life, and that life isn't going to happen for them, they're going to have to go out there and make it happen. And when you see them take ownership of that and see how freeing it is, but knowing that you can control every decision in your life, your decisions you can control, knowing that sets people free. And it's such a beautiful and cool moment. And I love that this show has been a part of that for some people. So that would be a huge thing for me. And then, man, honestly, snuggling up with my wife, who is the absolute center of my universe. I love that woman more than you can know. She is the collision of momentary happiness and framework happiness. Just over time, my brain has learned to secrete an absurd amount of oxytocin and dopamine whenever I'm around her. So it's from a neurochemistry standpoint, it is awesome to be around her. And then from a framework standpoint, we've built a life together, and it's been incredible. And we've fallen on our faces together, and we've been scared together, and been clipping coupons together, and built something together. It's been truly incredible. So those are the two things that really would make up my day and happen to also bracket the realities of human happiness. So make sure that when you think about building a life around those two happinesses, that you're very thoughtful about what are the things that make you happy and just cheery. Like, I love comic books. I could see a business somehow, even if it never got big, I could see a business. Just being around comic books puts me in a good mood. Or video games. I love video games, and being around video games puts me in a good mood. So I could see that. And the reason that we chose Quest Nutrition was that moment of awakening to me is everything. And being able to help people get their body right, being able to help people get their minds right, like that's the major juice of life. But I also have the day-to-day of being around creative artists like the wonderful people that I'm surrounded by now, because that's something that's also incredibly meaningful to me. So just acknowledge, what are the things that make me happy momentarily? What are the things that make me happy from a framework perspective? And then build your life around that. Next up, we have a question from Kai on Twitter.
If you, Tom, and your wife could live for 1,000 years, how would that change the way you currently live your life?
That's actually a really fascinating question. There was a book that I read when I was pretty young that left a very long-lasting impact on me, and it's called Einstein's Dreams. And it's a bunch of short stories about time. And one of the stories is about this world where everybody lives forever, and the world breaks into two different kinds of people. Those who realize, hey, I have forever, and so they never end up doing anything because there's always time to do it tomorrow. And then there's the other kind of people who, because they have forever, they get to pursue everything they've ever loved, and there'll be enough time to do it all. That's the category that I would fall into, and I think my wife would as well. There's so many things that I'm passionate about in life. My biggest frustration is that there's just not enough waking hours to do all the things that I want with my life. If you guys have read the book of questions, I love that little book. It's like party questions that you can ask. And one of them was, would you trade half of everything you own to never need to sleep again? And when I was a kid, I was like, is this a trick question? Of course not. How ridiculous is that? I love sleep. I wouldn't give up a tenth of anything that I own to not need to sleep. And then as I got older and I realized all the things that I wanted to do took time to pull off. And the more I found things that I was really passionate about, the more I got frustrated with inefficiencies, not having enough time, needing to sleep, all became almost torturous. So yes, I would give up everything that I own to be able to sleep, because with the extra hours I could build it all back again. Now, to really get specific and answer the initial question, what would it specifically change about our lives? It really would just allow us to have major movements in our life. And already right now, I think of Quest Nutrition as sort of earmarked it at a 25-year movement because I think that's about how long it will take to accomplish the goal. But I'm very goal-oriented, and I set very specific goals, and then I go about gaining the skill set that I need in order to actually accomplish on that goal. And then by the time I reach that goal, I've usually got another goal that I'm moving forward, and oftentimes I have multiple goals going in different areas of my life. So I would start thinking longer term, possibly even grander areas to have success, whereas I may need to gain just an absolutely massive skill set that in and of itself isn't very interesting. It may take me 10 years to accomplish, but that when strung with the next thing that would also take an additional 10 years to accomplish, I can now do this truly massive and unbelievable thing. So it would really expand my sense of what is possible, because the one thing that I do look at as a limitation in my life is just the amount of time, and that you have to be very judicious in what you allocate your time to. And there are certainly things, even just on the pleasurable scale, that I don't spend as much time doing because they conflict with goals that I have that I consider more important. So it would allow me to really go hard and pursue all the things that I love. And now, Kai, you've got me really wishing that I had my 1,000 years. So I'll be working for that. And hey, as a random ass side note, I actually don't plan to die. So why limit me at 1,000 years, Kai? That's the real question. All right, next up from Oh My Throwback, and this is from YouTube. Is there further information on modeling and the process of achieving more in less time? This is regarding the Tony Robbins episode. For those of you that aren't familiar with his work or haven't watched that episode, it goes something like this. If you're trying to have success in an arena, one of the surest ways to do that is to model your behavior after somebody else that's already had that kind of success. And honestly, if you know what you want out of life, and you're in that stage where you don't have a bunch of responsibilities, you probably don't have a spouse, you don't have kids yet, no mortgage, so there's a lot of flexibility in your life. In that time, what you want to do is go and donate your time to somebody who's living the life that you want to live. And that will give you access to somebody that has the information that you need to at least succeed in the way that they've succeeded. The thing that drives me crazy when people are giving advice on how to be successful is that a lot of times they're giving advice on a subject they've never been successful at. And I don't think any of us can necessarily give advice that we know will work for everyone, but if you're giving advice on how to be successful in an area that you at least have achieved success, then you know it's worked at least once. So in my life, I've always tried to go find those people for whom I know it's worked at least once. So for instance, my business partner Ron, absolutely massive guy, has tons of muscle mass, but he used to be really dweeby and skinny. So I knew, hey, this guy, at least one time, he had a system that worked to go from skinny to muscular. So I know that he's got some insights on muscle, and that's where I went to learn how to add muscle, and it ended up working out fantastically. I'm not nearly as big as he is, which is a reflection of the degree of importance for me versus him. But it's exactly what happens when you go and find somebody who's had success in the area that you want, and you know that you've got some proof positive answers for how to achieve that level of success. So that to me really is the sum total of what modeling is. Now, how you can get good at it, I think that the one thing that really is problematic is most people don't know what they want. And that's where they fall down. And if you read Cal Newport's book, Be So Good They Can't Ignore You, and in that he talks about the myth of passion. He says, look, passion is really the result of somebody taking an interest and then getting good at it. Right? And let that sink in. They take an interest and then they gain the passion as they gain mastery. And that's a really important notion, and I think it's going to serve you guys really, really well. So don't worry if right now you don't have something that's just a burning passion inside of you. Pick something that's an interest. Pick something that's a curiosity for you. And as you go, hopefully it begins to align with other curiosities that you have. And it's oftentimes those intersections of multiple curiosities where you really find something that has the potential of developing into a passion. But it's not going to develop into a passion until you really begin to gain mastery. And gaining mastery is one of the most fundamental, if not the absolute keystone, building block to happiness. So take an interest, begin to gain mastery. I think you'll find that it'll either blossom into a passion or you'll quickly realize this isn't something that you were actually intrinsically interested in, and it will free you up to move on to the next thing. But you have to think of passion as an exploratory process rather than something that's just sort of handed down to you at birth. That's usually not how it works. It's something that's developed over time, and you've got to have the discipline and the inquisitiveness, quite frankly, to go out and find something. So once you have that thing that you're inquisitive about, go out, find somebody that can shortcut that learning, that will teach you, donate your time so that there's no hurdle of acceptance that has a price tag on it, because people are obviously going to be much more reticent to pay you than they are to give you a chance. And then if they're giving you a chance, you're put into what I consider the most powerful position in life, which is you now have a chance based on what you know how to do, how prepared you are to impress somebody and get them to pay you or not. And if you're willing to take ownership of that, you can quickly regroup if the first one doesn't pay off and get somebody else to take you seriously. All right, that's modeling in a nutshell. All right, next up, we have a question by email from Yusuf Alexander. Does growth mindset work on the playground for my third grader as well as in high-level negotiations in my business? Absolutely. It may be even more powerful for you with a third grader in terms of teaching it to the third grader. You're meeting that notion at such a powerful time where all they're about is development. They are soaking everything in like a sponge. But the important thing to learn is that their brain doesn't stop developing until they're 25. They don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So it's going to be very hard for you to sort of logic your way through this problem. But what kids are incredibly adept at is watching behavior and mimicking it. They will watch what you do. I just heard a quote, I'm going to paraphrase it here, but don't worry about whether or not your kids are listening to you. Be really worried that they're watching everything you do. It's pretty funny because I think that's actually how people work, right? Your kids may not listen to a single word you say, but they are drinking in everything about your behavior. And at that age, in third grade, man, parents are bigger than life. They're like superheroes. The kids can't imagine that they could do anything wrong. So it's this amazing opportunity to show them not just never-ending strength, which is what I think most people want to do. They just want to put this front. They want their kids to think of them like a superhero so bad that they really miss the opportunity to show them that perpetually being great is a recipe for failure. What you want to show them is that you're open to learning from your mistakes, that you admit your mistakes, that you own where you went wrong, and that there's power and self-esteem in the very willingness to look at the things that you don't do well. And you want to watch your kid light up, do something, and then ask them, how could I have done that better? They may actually have a good idea. I'm always shocked by kids are thinking at really, really young age. They're thinking in really unique and inspiring ways because they don't have some of the trappings that come with learning to conform to society. They're still just a real innate curiosity. They haven't ruled things out. They have truly the naivete of the beginner, and it may actually be useful for you. But even if it's not, even if every idea that they give you is terrible, the fact that you asked, the fact that you took the time to show that you value their opinion, the fact that you took the time to show that you want to learn, that you want to grow, that you don't come from a position of saying, hey, I know everything, because then that sets them up that, whoa, this person that I admire, that I think is amazing, what makes them amazing is that they're invincible, that they know everything. But just think, when they grow up, they're not going to feel invincible. They're not going to feel like they know everything. So there'll be this inherent disconnect between this preconceived notion, which is obviously false, but they don't know that, this preconceived notion that their parents are perfect, that they know everything, and that's what gives them value, and they don't have that, and therefore they have less value. And that is a struggle that so many kids go through. I know I certainly went through it, of thinking, wow, I suck at so much stuff, and all these people that I respect, they don't seem to suck at it. They seem to be great, and they never seem to question. They don't seem to have any doubts. And so I struggled with that for a long time, and it's not until you start to get older and you realize, wait a second, everybody's got these struggles. That was empowering for me. That was maybe the most empowering notion that I came across, was everybody was just as insecure as I was. Everybody doubted themselves as much as I did. And if that were true, and this amazing world was built around me by people who were insecure, who had doubts, then what amazing thing could I build? And then that allowed me to start taking myself seriously. So really teaching your kids a growth mindset by showing it to them in behavior is incredibly powerful. It also works in the business realm. It's very, very powerful, but again, it has to be done through behavior. I understand, as somebody who rose through the ranks, you think, oh man, as a manager, I've just got to show everybody that I know this shit, that they're in good hands. Don't worry, I've got it. I'm the invincible winner. But the problem is you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're creating a culture where people feel like the only thing that gets rewarded is doing something right. When in reality, that's just going to teach them to hide things or to fight for bad ideas because they so want to win. They want the opportunity to be right. If instead you can create a company culture where people are rewarded for brainstorming, coming up with bad ideas and learning from them and pushing them and hearing a great idea from somebody else and giving encouragement to that idea because, wow, that really sparks something. It makes me feel creative. And you get that creative vibe because people feel safe in being vulnerable. And that's when the most interesting things come out. But it won't happen by accident. You're going to have to foster that environment. So to me, the growth mindset of believing that none of these traits are fixed, they can all be developed, super, super powerful stuff. All right, next up from Rohan.
What strategies would you adopt to make a personal brand or a business brand unforgettable or memorable?
To me, building a brand is about authenticity. So there really is no one answer. I think people should be building a business that is designed to do a couple things. One, first and foremost, above all else, its goal should be to deliver value. So your goal isn't to make or sell something. That's really, quite frankly, just a means to the end of delivering value to somebody. And if you focus relentlessly on delivering value to your customer, you have a real chance of succeeding, and you also won't get myopic on thinking that you are that product, right? It would be a huge mistake for us at Quest Nutrition to think that we're a protein bar company. We're not. Our goal is to end metabolic disease. The value that we're adding to customers is that we're going to give you food you want to eat that you think is entirely pleasurable. You're using to bond, you're using to self-soothe, you're using it to celebrate. And we've done the hard work of making sure that it's actually good for you. That's the value proposition. It has nothing to do with the protein bar. Protein bar is just a form factor. It may come, it may go, it doesn't matter. As long as I stay focused on my real value proposition, which is to make healthy eating fun and enjoyable, then we'll be able to morph, we'll be able to pivot, we'll be able to go where people want us to go. If people decide they don't want protein bars, it doesn't matter to us. We'll serve that need in another way with another product. And that's one of the reasons that we try never to become dogmatic here, because once you're dogmatic, you're no longer trying to deliver value. You're trying to prove that you're right. You're trying to cling to an ideal. You're no longer nimble. You're no longer willing to move and adapt. So you want to make sure that you're very, very careful about letting your ideas calcify into dogma. So stay focused on value. The next thing, and this is really important, it's not enough to be great for your customers. It's not even enough to be great for your employees. At the end of the day, if this is going to be a sustainable movement in your life, if you're trying to build a company that's going to last, if you really want it to be unforgettable, then it's got to be something that's unique, and it's got to be something that's authentically you. Because if they can get from your company, from any other company, then there's nothing that ties them to you. There's nothing that makes you stand out. There's nothing that's going to give you the gravitas to be unforgettable. And I think each and every one of us, we have quirks, we have eccentricities that are great and they're special, and they become somewhat of a call to other people, to people out there that share those things that we like, that, you know, maybe not mainstream, but they're identifiable and they're special to who we are. That's how you build a tribe. And building a tribe is how you create a movement. And building a movement is how you make a brand that lasts. Because if you start thinking of yourself as a product, it's never going to be a movement. It's never going to transcend a commodity, no matter what you're making, even if it's fashion or food, it doesn't matter. It will get commoditized if it's not a reflection of something deeper, if it's not a reflection of something that really, really means something to you. So find that mission, find that reason for why you're going to keep doing this when it gets really hard. Because the only promise I can make is that it will get hard. I can't promise that it'll be easy. I hope it'll be easy. I can't promise it'll be fun. I hope it'll be fun. But the one promise I can make is it'll be hard. Life just moves towards entropy. That's just how it goes. Start with a clean desk. What can I tell you about that desk in a week? Unless you actively tidy it up, it's going to get messy. Everything moves towards disorder. So there's going to be times where you're going to have to fight that keeping things in order is going to be inordinately difficult. And the only reason that you're going to keep fighting year after year after year is because there's some burning thing in you, some mission, something that you believe in, something that gives you a sense of meaning and significance that you're willing to fight for. Now, when you have that, when you have a willingness to fight for something, when you believe in your gut that it's right, then you know how to act. And you'll have the energy to keep acting long after it gets hard. So if you really want a brand to be unforgettable, don't think of it as a brand. Think of it as an extension of something real in you that you're trying to make come true that delivers value to your customer. The rest will take care of itself. As Viktor Frankl said, success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue. All right, next up is a Facebook question from Jake. I want to be an inventor that creates new materials for other businesses that change the world. Could I actually make this a career? The answer is absolutely. And if you look at what's going on in material sciences right now, you have picked an incredible time to get involved in that arena. Anything that falls onto information technology is going to be on an exponential curve. There are incredible breakthroughs happening virtually every day, and they're at what they call the knee of the curve, where they're going from being a deceptive technology that is almost invisible. 3D printing has been going for over 30 years, but it wasn't on anybody's radar till about probably 7 or 8 years ago, maybe, just now hitting the mainstream where people are able to buy something to have at home. They're having what Peter Diamandis of the X Prize calls that user interface moment, where it's now becoming very easy. There's an interface that people can interact with at home. They can do it themselves. There's not a lot of studying and things that you have to do in order to be able to do that. And so that takes it from being this deceptive technology that's below the radar to now it's going to become disruptive. And 3D technology is absolutely going to disrupt virtually everything. And as a food manufacturer, I take that very seriously. And I think one day at some point, 5, 10, 15 years from now, I think people 3D printing their own food is going to be very real. And we have to take that into consideration because our goal is to deliver value, right? So right now we make protein bars, we make protein powders, protein chips, things like that. But that may not be the way that we serve our real mission of ending metabolic disease by making healthy eating fun in the future. We may start making recipes that we send over the blockchain out into 3D printing, and everybody's printing their own stuff at home. Who knows, right? The future brings all kinds of crazy stuff. But the key for you, if you really want to make a career out of this, it is all about learning. You're going to need to know more about material sciences than anybody else. That's got to be the goal. And as you go down that path, as you get better, as you learn more, it'll either turn into a passion or you're going to realize that it's not for you. But as you get that momentum of learning about it, turning into a passion, you can start to get a base of knowledge that's big enough, that's broad enough, that you could also begin contributing to the breakthroughs. And there's some really fascinating studies coming out right now that talk about how people that are multidisciplinary, that say are studying the arts as well as the sciences, are the ones that have the most meaningful breakthroughs. So it's that collision, if you can make it happen, not shut down your other interests, but keep them up, keep yourself in a very creative space, but chase that base of knowledge that's going to let you do something meaningful. And just as a broad note, that question could have been anything. I have a passion for soccer, but I'm in a wheelchair. Can I make it a career? Absolutely. There's 1,000 ways to interact with anything that's your passion. You can come at it from different angles. You could become a coach. You could become a commentator. You could become an analyst. You could become somebody working in the finance department for your favorite team. Whatever the case may be, there are so many ways to interact with that thing that you love. It just may be from a skewed angle, but you've got to be willing to look at it from unconventional means and find something that resonates with you and the way that you want to interact with it, and finding your strengths, right? So if you're in a wheelchair, chances are, if you want to be involved in the English Premiership, you're probably not going to be out on the field, but you could still engage with it in an incredibly meaningful way. It's about finding where your other interests intersect with that sport, what it is that you love about that sport. And that will take you in the direction of what will ultimately allow you to engage in a meaningful way. Anybody that can deliver value can make a career, right? Say that to yourself all day, every day. If you find a way to deliver value to a customer, you can monetize anything. It's about delivering value. So you just have to find that avenue, that underserved avenue where there's pent-up desire for something, but nobody is delivering the value in that way, and then deliver that value to those people. People will pay for value. You can monetize anything. If you think I'm crazy, there are people right now making money letting other people watch them play video games. It's absolutely crazy. It's utterly amazing. It's breathtaking and beautiful. I love it. And to Gothalion, King Gothalion, I thank you, my friend. You have helped me get better at Destiny. You are one of the streamers that I follow. So, hey, you can make a living doing just about anything. You just have to find that thing that you're truly passionate about. You're willing to get so good at it that you can deliver more value than anybody else. All right, next up we have Alfred.
What are the 3 most influential books you have ever read?
It's going to be different for everybody. I'm going to give you a really weird answer. But before I do that, I encourage you to go look at the list of books that I have up on InsideQuest.com. It's what I consider the perfect reading list. It's in order, and it's all the books that I think you need to read in order to find success, because it's going to give you all the tools mentally that you're going to need to overcome the natural limitations of being a human. It will frame things well for you. It will give you very concrete tactics and tools that you'll be able to use to go on and do whatever it is that you want. And the most foundational book on there is Carol Dweck's Mindset, which is just astonishing in laying the groundwork for a growth mindset that you'll need to really assimilate the information in all the other books. Now, for me personally, the most influential book, if I say anything other than Stephen King's The Gunslinger, I'd be lying. Now, it's a fiction book, and I don't really read fiction anymore. That's another story. But the reason that book was so influential for me was I didn't think I liked reading. In fact, I thought I hated reading. And my dad said, that's actually not true. Everybody likes reading, and people who say that they don't like reading just haven't found the books that tell the kinds of stories that they're interested in. So when I was about to give up on reading, I was 13 years old, my dad said, look, I want you to read this book. It's called The Gunslinger. Read it. And if you don't like this book, I'll never pressure you again to read. I picked it up, I read the opening sentence, and from that moment, I've been a reader. And I'm desperate to get Stephen King on Inside Quest because I owe him such a debt of gratitude. I've ended up reading dozens and dozens of Stephen King books, and he really was the person that awoke me to the beautiful nature that you can have with a book and with an author, which then opened me up to reading nonfiction, which then ended up completely transforming my life. So that was the most important. Next, I would say, is Carol Dweck's book, Mindset. That really is the most foundational, one of the most transformative books ever. When I read it, it just brought together so many ideas that I'd been sort of slapping together as I went, because unfortunately I came along a little too early and her book didn't exist as I was stumbling my way through life. So that book is such a powerful shortcut for anybody that really wants to get serious about taking control of their mind. A third book, which is actually very new to me, but I found so powerful that I put it into second place on my perfect reading list, and that's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babbitt. And the reason that I think that book is so important, and the reason that I put it in second place, is because that one ingredient is the one thing that's missing for so many people. They get a growth mindset, they want to get better, but yet they're not willing to accept ownership at the deepest level. So there's a story that I tell, and I tell it a lot, and I'm going to keep telling it until so many people can recite it that it lives inside of them. And it goes like this. My wife is British and happens to be standing right there. All true. Let's say that she were at her mother's house, in the house that she grew up in. She's in her bedroom, safe and sound. The doors are locked. The alarm is on. She couldn't be any safer. Except right then a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, crashes into her bedroom, and kills her. Whose fault is that? Almost certainly you think it was dumb luck, divine providence, wrong place, wrong time, something like that. It's nobody's fault. But I truly believe, and I believe this because it's empowering, I truly believe it's my fault. And the reason that I believe it's my fault, and the reason that I act in accordance with that, is because then it puts me in a position to do something about it. Now here's the truth. I know right now that there is a group that are tracking what are called near-Earth objects. Now, they're trying to find a way to knock meteorites and comets and anything else that might hurtle in and crash into my wife or somebody's wife or husband. Whether that's going to be a laser or a planted nuclear explosion, whatever the case is going to be, they're trying. Now, I know they exist. I've never sent them a dime of my own money. I've never sent them an email with encouraging words. I've never called them up to give them my ideas. Despite all of that, despite knowing that it could be a problem one day for my wife. So if I choose not to act on that, if I choose not to move that forward, even though it's a very remote chance that something ever happens to my wife, if something does happen to my wife, I'm not going to waste time blaming other people. I'm going to recognize that that was me failing to act. Now, I think I'm spending my time the way I should spend my time. Just the likelihood of that happening to my wife is virtually zero. So to put a lot of time and energy into that does not make sense. So I'm not saying it's my fault to take blame or to feel badly about myself. The only thing I would feel if my wife were struck by a meteorite is deeply saddened and lost because of losing the love of my life. but I wouldn't waste time blaming somebody else. You've got to take ownership of everything that happens in your life simply for the fact of reminding you that you could always have made different choices. I could have contributed to that effort to find a way to knock things like that off course, or to making better systems so that we could see it coming, so that we knew exactly where it was going to land, so I could make sure that she wasn't there, but I didn't do any of that, and all of that was a choice. So I tell that story specifically because I know how absurd it sounds, but you can imagine if I think that about a meteorite, and I really do think that, you can imagine how I feel when someone misses a deadline or I fail to accomplish something that I'm trying to do. I never pass the buck. I always take the ownership on myself. And that, to me, having a growth mindset and taking ownership yourself, those are the two most powerful changes that you could make to your mindset if you want to be successful. But you have to embody it. You can't just say it or repeat it. Retelling that story but not acting in accordance with it doesn't do you any good. You have to embody it. All right, the next question comes from Joseph Savino via YouTube. What is Quest University becoming? Well, if I'm completely honest, Quest University isn't becoming anything yet. I have a vision for what I want Quest University to become, and I have a growing suspicion that there's going to need to be a change in the way that higher education happens. Right now, people are going to college, they're getting massive amounts of debt, and they're not necessarily being taught the things that they need to be taught if they want to be successful. So I don't care what you want to do in life. The two most powerful books that you could read are Mindset by Carol Dweck and Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babbitt. And yet, I've got to imagine that the vast majority of colleges out there don't teach it, and even the ones that do teach it, is it a requirement to graduate? Probably not. Those are the two most profound things that you could do, read, understand, and embody if you want to be successful. And yet the education system isn't ensuring that you encounter that you understand it, that you embody it. So I think that best case scenario, there are issues in education that need to be solved. Now, I went to school, I got my degree, I'm very happy that I did it, so I'm certainly not saying that it's a waste. I just think that there are some refinements. Also, the promise that I make to any employee that comes into Quest Nutrition is that Quest is going to be the most beautiful thing that ever happened to you. And somebody with a growth mindset who wants to see people grow and get the skills that they need to go and do what they want to do in life, I know that education is going to have to be a big part of that. Now, if I'm really honest, we're going to start small, we're going to build, we're going to get little wins, and we're going to build on that success. I'm not trying to build, big buildings and bring in an entire staff of educators right off in the beginning. IQ is really the first step to introduce people to new ideas. So that's Quest University Beta. As we grow and get bigger, there's places like Singularity University, who I'd love to find a way to partner with. I think they're doing some incredible things. They're very short, intensive courses designed to really incubate and get people to come up with ideas that could be enacted on immediately. And then also, being in a manufacturing space, there's basic skills that we want to help teach people, from English language to basic accounting. And there's just really fundamental things that if people take care of and learn about, that it will make their life better. And I'm not at all worried about just giving people skills that will help them here. My promise to the employees is that we want to help you do what you want to accomplish in life. So I'm not worried about me. Don't show up worried about Quest. Don't show up worried about Tom Run Mike. Show up every day thinking, am I still moving towards my goals here? And if you are, then stay and double down and continue to work hard. But if you're not, you really need to find that opportunity that's going to help you live your most authentic and powerful life. So Quest University will continue to develop with the goal of doing that, providing the individualized value to people that they need to succeed in the way that they want to succeed. All right, guys, thank you so much for submitting your questions. This community really, really is incredible. It's the support you give each other that means the most to me, and I love getting your questions and seeing the things that are weighing on your mind. It helps us with guest selection to know what you guys really want more of, and it's a lot of fun to just connect with you guys. So thank you so much for submitting those. We'll be doing these regularly, so keep the questions coming. Until next time, my friends, be legendary. Take care.